Welcome to The Wide Angle. I'm Brendan Fallon. Popular fiction, children's movies, storybooks have their share of villainous characters who set out to cancel Christmas, which is in fact what the Chinese Communist Party has done for Christmas 2021. And it's done this partly under the guise of COVID prevention. Sound familiar? It should, because distressingly, there are tones of this coming through in many countries of the world. For instance, the recent outdoor mask mandates and limits on the size of gatherings in Europe. In this episode, Dr. Antonio Graceffo joins us to offer his insights into the Chinese Communist Party's crackdown on Christmas and other forms of religious celebration. Antonio is a China economist who earned his PhD at the University of Shanghai. You can click on the link in the chat or the comments to subscribe to my newsletter. That way, nothing can keep us apart. Antonio, great to have you back on the show. I think it's been about 3 months since the last time we talked.
Good to see you, Brendon.
You're someone who's spent a lot of time in China. You've studied there, you did your PhD there. We've recently seen a further crackdown on Christmas in China. It's been more stringent than ever this year. And this is part of an ongoing acceleration of crackdowns on religious celebrations and a crackdown on religion in general in China. So you, as a Catholic, having spent a lot of time there and being very familiar with the culture, I want to know what your experience was of this.
Sure. Well, during the 7 years that I was in China, we would receive an edict, a message, a letter, whatever you want to call it, each year around November. They would notify us what the Communist Party's stance was on Christmas in that given year. And I remember that my first year teaching at the university, we had our own briefing for the foreign teachers. They said, listen, last year the government told us don't celebrate Christmas at all, so please don't celebrate Christmas. It's going to be a problem. Next thing I know, we receive an invitation to the Communist Youth League's Christmas party. So apparently that year, the government decided to promote Christmas, and it has a lot to do with the economy because it became a shopping holiday.
Just a second, Antonio, could you give our audience a little bit of background about the Communist Youth League, what that organization does?
Sure. On the university campuses, they have clubs as you would in any university, and one of them is the Communist Youth League. And so I would assume that the majority of the kids that are in the Communist Youth League are planning to join the party, but it's not like everyone in China belongs to the party. And they offer some scholarship money and various advantages if the kids will join. So you have this Communist Youth League. It would be a bit more extreme probably than like the Young Republicans Club or the Young Democrats Club at one of our universities here.
The Hitler Youth is coming to mind. Is there any kind of connection there?
Oh, I'm trying not to make that connection, but they actually do things on behalf of the party, which, because of the Chinese system, the party is the government. So when the government wants something done, they can order or ask the Communist Youth League to carry out certain activities, like when the dispute over the Senkaku Islands with Japan. So they asked the Communist Youth League to protest, and then of course they all sent us notice that we're not going to be in class this week. You cannot count us absent, and we're going to be protesting Japan because they're evil. So it's various activities. Or in years that we're not allowed to celebrate Christmas, if the teachers had decorated or something like that, it would probably be the Communist Youth League that would come and actually tear down the decorations or turn us in or something like that, or observe us. So yeah, it's probably somewhere between a benign, young Republican or Democrats club and like the Hitler Youth.
And so
they didn't wear uniforms.
They're doing these kinds of things that the Communist Party doesn't want to be seen to be doing itself. Is that the idea?
It might be. I always just thought of it more as a utilitarian kind of thing because they're on the campus already, and there's many of them, hundreds or thousands of them. So anything they need to carry out, they have a lot of free hands to do that.
And you're saying that this Communist Youth League delivered the news about this ban, or you said? Oh,
so in 2012 they invited us to their Christmas party. So apparently it means, so you always have to read between the lines in China. If the Communist Youth League invites you to their Christmas party, it means the party has approved Christmas that year. And the reason that they did it 2012 and a few other years had to do with the economy. So what they promoted was a highly commercialized, completely sanitized of religion version of Christmas to promote shopping. And Christmas becomes a really huge, consumer holiday in China that helps boost the economy. So in 2012, they promoted it. Then another year, they came in and they told us, and the news was delivered to us by the Communist Youth League, and they would come and tell us, you can't even have a Christmas tree this year. So it just depended on what the mood of the party was that year. In my final year in China, which 2018 was my final Christmas, 2019 was my final year. 2018, we were told that we could not celebrate Christmas.
Was there any kind of rationale given for that?
Not really. I don't know that they would actually say to us it's because it's a foreign holiday, but we would actually receive edicts from the Communist Youth League that would say, you cannot celebrate foreign holidays. It wouldn't specifically identify Christmas necessarily. They would say foreign holidays. Now, in previous years, they allowed Christmas because of consumerism, but almost never, in the 7 years I was in China, I think not even once did they allow Easter. And this included, and you wouldn't normally celebrate Easter on a university campus. I mean, it wouldn't normally be something you would do with your class or something, because it is a religious holiday. There's nothing else, no other way to do Easter. But they had very strict prohibitions against Easter. And then you would always read in the newspaper the next day that home churches had been raided, for celebrating Easter and things like that.
They particularly targeted Easter. Why do you think that is?
I think because Easter has no other spin. There's no other way to, like, for example, they would have the prohibition on foreign holidays, but inevitably they would allow Halloween because, again, there was a bit of consumerism. They could sell candy and sell things. But it was very toned down, and it was only in schools. And then if you went to the shopping malls and things, there'd probably be some kind of little activity for Halloween, and then the same thing for Christmas. You would never have like Father Christmas at the mall and the kids go, sit on his lap or something like that. But they might have decorations, and they leave them up until after Chinese New Year, so they're actually there for quite a long time. And they promote sales. But for Easter, I've never seen a public decorations or party or anything like that. But we would get very specific. Do not celebrate Easter, and they would raid the home. They did these home churches, underground churches and things. They would raid those. And of course, the official churches would not celebrate Easter at all.
So one of the ways that the Chinese Communist Party has spun this ban on Christmas, it's said that it's another one of its COVID prevention measures. I guess it fits somewhere into this whole COVID zero policy. Under this policy, we've also seen some pretty stringent measures on aircraft that are coming in, passenger flights that are coming into China. Recently, there was a situation with American Airlines Delta flight coming from Seattle, ended up returning back from Shanghai. And we have a statement from a Delta staff member. China's arbitrary and unreasonable pandemic prevention policy not only sets an insurmountable threshold for Chinese passengers who are eager to go home, but is also unbearable for foreign airlines. There's a certain irony here because the jury is still out on the origin of the coronavirus, but we know for sure that the CCP acted in a way that accelerated the spread of the virus. It kept information to itself. It withheld the information that there was human-to-human transmission for a long time. A lot of people are dead because of the CCP's management of the outbreak in Wuhan. And now it's COVID zero, and it's making it as difficult as possible for flights to come in. What do you think's going on here?
The COVID zero policy is very confusing, or I should say puzzling for me. I don't understand why they're doing it. I originally thought that they were presenting a model to the world of these lockdowns because they wanted to trick the rest of the world into destroying their economy. But the COVID zero policies are destroying the Chinese economy. Now, at the same time, COVID zero in China is working as well for the CCP as it is for Western democracies that used to have freedoms but are now deciding that citizens no longer need those freedoms. It's working the same way because part of the new trend in China is that they're turning inward and they're rejecting the outside world. So one of the ways they're doing that is by keeping the borders shut and by making it very difficult to fly in and out of China. There was a point a few months ago where flying into China, you had to go through like a double quarantine. You were in sort of a jail type quarantine for 2 weeks, and then you had to be in like a hotel type quarantine for 2 weeks. I mean, they have made the rules so strict and so difficult. And then for me, I live in Mongolia. We're running out of everything, shampoo, toilet paper, whatever it is, because all these products are imported from China. Our whole income is dependent on exports to China, but the border's closed. I read this morning there were huge protests in Kazakhstan, which They protested the Chinese embassy because the Chinese embassy is refusing to allow the border to open, and Kazakhstan can't export to China, so they've got no income. And that protest was particularly important because Kazakhstan's not a high-functioning democracy with a lot of rights, which basically means the government must have condoned, this protest. But anyway, yeah, China has these rules now. They're very arbitrary, very difficult. One of my friends took a job in China. He's working in Turkey, took a job in China, read the protocol, which among them was that he had to be vaccinated, double vaccinated with Sinopharm. He took the vaccination in Turkey. He went through all the steps that they said for him to go through. And then they said, oh, no, you can't. You basically can't do it because either there was some chain of either the embassy is not open in Turkey, or they're not issuing the visas, or they're not, the flights are canceled, whatever it was. But he went through a very long, like months of going through all the hoops, including taking Sinopharm that he never wanted to take. And now he still can't go to China and work. So these policies seem to be working very well with Xi Jinping's, turning inward. But as far as the economy goes, I mean, it's just wrecking the economy.
And this Sinopharm vaccine, from what I understand, that's a pretty scary proposition in itself. There's a lot of concern about these vaccines in general, but when it comes to the Chinese brand vaccine, it's another dimension altogether again. So, Antonio, you're saying that the main motivation behind what they're doing with these very stringent quarantine processes is to curtail foreign influence in China?
I'm not saying that is the purpose. I'm saying it's working in that way, or it works well with that policy, because they have a general policy right now that they want to curb foreign. Even in the cinema now, they're going to have less American movies. They're promoting a couple of big Chinese blockbusters. They just want less foreign influence, which is another reason why they cracked down on Christmas this year. And I'm sure that they'll crack down on Easter and Ramadan as well. But because they're trying to stop foreign influence in China. Now, I don't know that that's the reason for these policies. I'm very concerned because I can see everywhere, including Australia and the United States and other countries around the world, I see these policies in place. They certainly work well with certain government policies of control, but I don't understand why they're doing it. I don't know the reason why China is doing it. It's wrecking their economy. Yes, it's working well with keeping foreign influence out, but is that the goal? Is that the goal above the economy? I don't have an answer.
You left China in spring 2019. What are your impressions for, what stands out in your memory from your final days there?
It just became harder and harder to operate and live in China with the trade war. It became very uncomfortable. I was working with a Chinese government think tank interpreting Trump's trade policies. And they would always say, 他代表 Trump. They're always like, he represents Trump. And I took it to mean like I represent him in the sense that I'm explaining his policies to the people. But it started to become that people really thought that I worked directly for Trump or for the U.S. government or something like that. And they started kind of blaming me when things would go wrong. They just call me I can't get this product anymore. This is your fault, That was part of it. I couldn't get work permits for my employees. In fact, my work permit was suddenly very ambiguous. And then one of my employees went to the ATM machine, and the ATM machine wouldn't give him his money. And I couldn't get my money out of China. Then the police came on the campus, and they had all the teachers come in and fill out a religious declaration form. They wanted to know what our religion was, and they were warning us again not to celebrate. And I'm Catholic, and one of my coworkers was from France, and she was Muslim. Vatican State, the Holy See, as a nation, recognizes Taiwan. And I don't know if that has part of it as well, that they don't want foreign influence from a specific country. And Catholicism, of course, is led by a country if you recognize the Holy See as a nation. So that may have been part of it. But that was kind of the last. I left shortly after that happened.
Antonio, I just want to show this meme here. This hasn't come out of China. This is, I believe, from an American TV show, but it's kind of making light of the situation in China of the ban on Christmas. So we have a child, and his parents are trying to convince him that Christmas is Chinese. They're saying the toys are made in China, and there's nothing more Chinese than the color red, which Santa, of course, wears. I'm wondering, you were teaching at a university, at Shanghai University in China, you had a very ground level experience there. How did you see Chinese people, like the students you were dealing with, how did they interpret these kinds of policies?
Well, they really enjoy celebrating Christmas. You know, they enjoy having a Christmas party. They enjoy giving gifts and just purchasing a lot of things. And then there'll be big parties on Christmas evening. You know, it's not a religious thing. You know, I'm going to church and they're all going to a rave or something. But yeah, no, they really liked it, and it's being celebrated in China. Oh, it's a very important point. The celebration of Christmas in China is very closely tied to the English tuition centers. And that would be where most people would have had their first experience. Because remember, they start English tuition centers very often before they even begin school. And public schools don't celebrate Christmas. So a lot of Chinese children, 3, 4 years old, are already at English tuition centers. So they begin celebrating Christmas quite young. And then for, you know, Christmas to be canceled on a given year is, particularly for small children, is, you know, upsetting because they really enjoy it.
This is Christmas that's had any kind of notion of spirituality extracted from it, any connection to religiosity or religion.
Yeah, I particularly like when they have the manger scene and they've got Santa Claus in the crib. Like that's a common, because they just have no idea. I've actually seen ones where they had like Jesus on the cross in the manger scene because they have no idea what's going on there.
I've heard there was attempts at one stage to try and substitute Santa with Mao Zedong. Have you heard about that?
I've seen things like that in China, and I wasn't sure if they were sanctioned by the state, because it also seems like a bit of an insult to Mao Zedong. So I'm not sure if that was widely sanctioned.
Just lastly, Antonio, what hope do you have with all this kind of stuff going on, these crackdowns on religion in China? What hope do you have for the survival of faith there?
Well, I think that the underground churches are not waning. I think it's just driving the people under. First of all, if they didn't have the crackdown, you only have the state-sanctioned churches, which if you're deeply religious, you don't like the state. You know, I only went very rarely to the Catholic Church because it's the Communist Catholic Church, you know, and the liturgy is dictated by the Communist Party of China. So I had enough of that in my lessons at the university. I didn't need it, you know, on Sundays as well. But so it drives people into these underground churches where they can worship freely. And I think that is not waning. From what I understand, a lot of the Christian publications are claiming that the underground churches are tremendous, and there's maybe even hundreds of millions of underground Christians in China. I don't know, and I don't know how they would get a number on that, but I know that my friends that went to these churches, they had a lot of, you know, they would tell me they were at one underground church for a while. They didn't like it. I'm going to this other one. I went to a third one. You know, so over a period of years, they were going to quite a few of these churches. So it means that definitely a lot of these churches exist. People who want faith are going to go there, and the crackdowns won't affect them in that respect.
So with all these Communist Party crackdowns, it seems like faith is enduring nevertheless.
Yes, I believe faith will always prevail.
Antonio, it's been great having you on the show again. I wish you a happy new year, and hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you, Brendon. Happy New Year to you.
This is my last episode for 2021. I want to thank all of you for tuning in and for your comments, which I do endeavor to read and reply to. I look forward to more wide-angle adventures with you all in 2022. See you next year.